Back-to-back, spite the Bucs again. Is the reason for concern? We dig into the numbers and what Giannis had to say coming up next on Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Bucs, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucs. My name is Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day, and for making Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode of Locked On Bucs is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So we're going to take a look ahead to what the Bucs have coming up this week, Camille. And we mentioned on our most recent show we were going to do. We're putting out a post gamer following every game this year, and said we'll talk to you tomorrow following the Lakers game. And then the first half happened, and you and I like, are we doing this? Thankfully, they showed some life in the second half of the game, but there is a very disturbing trend with this team. Trend may be too early for 3 games, but nonetheless, the Bucs have been the opposite of good in back-to-backs so far this season. We teased Giannis had something to say about that. I have the numbers up in front of me. I don't know if you've looked at any of these yet.
Not back-to-back numbers.
Okay, perfect. They are 1-2 in the night 2 of a back-to-back, and I can't even remember what the win was now.
So I was trying to think, because Toronto was the loss. They just lost to the Lakers. The other back-to-back before that, I'm like, what was the actual victory here for them?
Well, you know what? There's one easy way to solve this, Camille, and everybody's kind of screaming at their computer or at their phone right now saying, how do you guys not remember it was this game? We can just pull up the schedule and quickly look at this. The Mavericks game, duh.
Yes.
Just
after
a
losing
week
to the Rockets.
ago. All right. So how did that one slip through? But nonetheless, here's why it slipped through. They have I'm gonna choose my words carefully because of being somebody that works on the team broadcast, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It has not been good, certainly on back-to-backs. They have not been good in the month of November. And I think that's an even more disturbing trend for this team. But since we brought up the back-to-backs, 1-2, and they have a defensive rating of 120.4 in those games, which is 24th in the league. They have an offensive rating. What would you guess their offensive rating is in night 2?
Well, I know generally it's around that at least before this Lakers game.
115.
like 116, somewhere in there. So I'm going to guess on second of a back-to-back, I'm going to guess that's going to tank some. I'm going to say 101.
105, pretty close, which is, again, 24th. So you're 24th in offense, 24th in defense, 26th in net rating. Night 2 of a back-to-back. The good news is, based on your efficiency numbers here, the expected win-loss for the Bucs in night 2 of a back-to-back is 0-3, so they have outkicked their coverage. But here's the most perplexing part to all of it. This is a younger team. And I know you and I talked about it on shows earlier. I've talked about it with other people and talked about it on the radio side on that post-game show and our game broadcasts. The thought was, well, we're younger and more athletic, so things like this and the schedule stretch of 5 games in 7 days, like that theoretically shouldn't haunt you as much as it did with a team made up of your best players in their mid-30s. And yet, here we are.
And I wonder the why behind that. Like, this is something I would love to have a conversation with an NBA player, former or current, just what is the conditioning levels required? How do conditioning levels change throughout the season too? Because there's a natural, okay, we're playing the games, I'm getting into better shape because I'm just doing it consistently. But that other end of it, which comes in with the whole rest management conversation of all right, you're also pushing your body. At what point do you need to kind of back up a little bit and give your body time to recover? And how does all of that play into the schedule? that NBA players tend to be on. Just out of general curiosity, because like you said, this is something that I wasn't expecting from a younger Bucks team, at least younger guys in the main rotation for this team here. Giannis looked like Giannis for the most part throughout this game. So hearing him after the game talk about like we got to figure this out, like conditioning, whatever it is, we have to be ready for it. And what was the most disappointing part of the Lakers game for me is that the Lakers were also on the second night of a back-to-back. They had to travel to Milwaukee for their back-to-back. Like, yes, the Bucks had an overtime game the night before, so you had an extra 5 minutes of game time added onto your body, but you had the benefit of at least not having to travel for the upcoming game while the Lakers had to come into Milwaukee for that. So a little disappointed that the Lakers looked like the fresher team over the Bucks in this game for long stretches throughout. But it's like, how do you get better at that throughout the season? Is it just like you got to continue to do it? Or is it something like in the off season now, you have a better understanding, you have to prepare? Because while it's all the same faces on this Bucks team, we've mentioned there are some guys in elevated roles that they weren't in last season. So it's like, how are you taking care of your body in between games, making sure you're ready for the grind of back-to-backs or, 6 games in 9 days or whatever the craziness the schedule throws at you?
Yeah, I'll take it a step further. I mean, talking to the radio team, they arrived in Milwaukee at about 3 a.m. after that game against the Pelicans. So same situation the Bucks faced for that dreadful game in Toronto. But not only was it night 2 of a back-to-back for the Lakers, as you mentioned, and Luka played 40 minutes against the Pelicans the night prior. The Lakers are on the exact same stretch of schedule as the Bucks. This was their 5th game in 7 days. And a majority of those are road games. Whereas, the Bucks, I think it's been split home and road for the most part. So there were absolutely no excuses for this one. And you mentioned what goes into the conditioning for this. Doc brought that up too in his post-game comments. I mean, I can kind of see where Doc is coming from, that you've seen and noticed the last couple of games just kind of, I don't want this to be misinterpreted, but Doc just kind of like over it with some of the questions, with the responses he's given, like dating back to the free throw stuff when he's asked about his team's free throw shooting, which again is not good. And so, like, well, what do you want me to do, guys? Tell them, hey, we should try to make free throws. Like, that's one thing. How do you want Doc Rivers to control what the Bucks are doing, shooting 69% on their free throws? He was asked a couple of times prior to this Lakers game, the game before it too, against the Hornets, I believe, when he was asked about some of the fouls being called, and just like, hey, well, you've noticed this, like, how much does that worry you with the Lakers? Like, well, yeah, like, we're not magically going to be the only team that all of a sudden Luka Doncic is not getting any calls against. We just have to stop fouling. So you've sensed kind of a frustrated Doc Rivers of late with some of these questions. He did maintain before the Lakers game, it's very early in the season, and this is small samples we're talking about, and these are things that happen throughout the season. So as of this moment, I am not worried about it, and I'm not making a big deal out of this stuff that I think, like going back to the Hornets game, he mentioned, guys, night 2 of a back-to-back. Last night was a cup game. We played in overtime. We played our guys heavy minutes. It was an up-tempo game where the pace was fast. We asked a lot of guys. They were exhausted. I'm not reading too much into it. We just didn't have it. But he did mention we don't have the conditioning, I guess, where it needs to be for this early in the season, and that's something that, we need to work on. There's no let-up, though, in this schedule.
No.
Like, we talked about the 5 games in 7 days. I mean, now you finally get a bit of rest. So you go to Cleveland for your game tonight, and then you get 2 days off. So you're going to be back home in Milwaukee by, roughly midnight, 1 a.m. tonight or tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning. And then you don't leave Milwaukee until the very next week, the day before Thanksgiving, the 25th of November. So that's the good piece. There's none of this back and forth throughout the rest of the week. You get 2 days off in between. And yeah, you got 3 days compressed in here, 3 games, but they're all at home, but after those 2 days off, it goes right back into every other day and a back-to-back. So again, the same type of schedule where we're looking at, I think in this case, it's 5 games in 8 days.
So it becomes one of those things that every dayers probably remember me saying this. I'm sure you remember me saying this, where situations like this, I go back to my thought of like, okay, are we giving reasons as to why something has happened, or are we making excuses? Like, what's the difference between a reason and an excuse here? And it's like you can point to it for sure. They are tired. They have just played a lot of games. The cup game took a lot out of them for sure. Not disagreeing with that. But this is part of the gig. Like, this is also what you need to be ready for. Like, you saw the schedule when everybody else saw the schedule in the offseason. You saw that you were going to have these stretches of games. You saw you were going to have these back-to-back. So, like, ultimately, regardless of the reason or excuse, whichever way you want to go with it, it has to improve. Like, there's just no other way around it. It's not as if the Bucs are the only team having to deal with this, So it's like, it's early still in the season. So that part I'll give you of like, hey, sometimes you got to kind of get yourself into that game shape. I mean, we even heard from Kuz last year when he got traded to the team of like, hey, my conditioning isn't quite where I need it to be for my role on this team. It was fine in Washington, but what they have me doing here in Milwaukee this year, I got to kind of continue to get that together. So the Bucs ultimately got to get that together because, as you mentioned, like, it's not going to get easier and they're not the only team going through this. So got to figure it out if they want to try to stack wins, because we've been in this holding pattern now for the last 2 weeks, month of November. Win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. Like, we got to start to stack some games, and you're not gonna be able to stack games if you can only play well when you have a rest advantage.
Yeah. Dating back to October 30th. Every other game, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, which good news. You keep that up. You're the Atlanta Hawks of the last handful of years, and you're at least not going to have a losing record. You're probably going to be in the play-in tournament if that's the case. So, I mean, that's the trade-off too, as Giannis said, non-negotiables. Like, good teams don't lose back-to-back games, and the Bucs said, all right, bet, but we're not going to win back-to-back games. So you'd like to see that improve. You need to see that improve. There's some other numbers. We mentioned November has not been kind to the Bucs. We'll dig into some of those numbers and a few other items with those back-to-back efficiency numbers coming up next. Your ambition just met its match with Robinhood. You play for the win, not just on game day, but every day. Locking in every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. You trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends Advanced Tools. Or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself. Expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Basketball season's officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. Let's be real, though. Getting tickets can oftentimes be a headache. You wait in queues, you get surprise fees, prices jump up right before you check out. It's easy to lead to frustration when all you want to do is get in the building and cheer on your team. Well, that's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives you, the fans, advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Use Game Time to grab some seats to this upcoming homestand Camille and I are going to get into, and a chance to see the Cream City jerseys live and in person. What you see is what you pay. No hidden fees at checkout. If you've never been to Fiserv Forum, you can use the feature too to see exactly what your view from the seat is going to look like. Maybe you say, surprise me. Use their zone deals. You pick the section. Game Time picks the seats, and you end up saving big. All told, you can get into the building for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. by the way, the Cream City jerseys make their debut this Thursday, Camille, when the Bucs return home. I'm trying to deflect right now because there's not a lot of fun. I'm just
The numbers that bad, huh?
I'm just gonna say this. I believe I was talking to someone last night. I think there's like 6 or 7 games between now and the start of the calendar year that the Bucs are going to be wearing the Cream City jerseys. Philly is the first time we'll see those Thursday when they return home. It's going to be interesting because that'll be the re-debut of the Cream City jerseys. And the 76ers, do you know what they're going to be wearing that night?
Are they wearing the black?
They're wearing the black. That's just going to be like, and just get the shades of Allen Iverson, Tyrone Hill, Eric Snow hitting long twos, and Aaron McKee doing what like. All right, let's. That's what we're facing on Thursday. But I said we're trying to deflect, and now we're just bringing back bad memories.
Yeah, bringing up ghosts of past Bucs heartbreak.
Well, let's lean into it then and embrace the bad here. As the Bucs mentioned, those numbers not great offensively. When you look at the 4 factors on night 2 of a back-to-back, that's the problem. They're basically in the bottom 5 across the board. The offensive efficiency we mentioned is 24th. Effective field goal percentage for the team that, again, has been number 1 for large stretches of this season, number 21. Offensive rebounding rate, why you bother mentioning it? They're not doing it on rest or without, but they're 24th there. Free throw rate, same story. They're not getting to the line, 24th there. And to me, those are especially important on night 2 of a back-to-back because it's a way to slow down the game and score while you're doing it, but they're not getting that.
Right.
Last night's game, where would you, I don't want to say place the blame, but like what was the bigger problem, the offense or the defense? Because we had this discussion during a couple of breaks of the game broadcast, and, coming out of halftime, I just felt like your defense has to play better. Like, the offense sucked.
It did.
They were, 24% at one point through the most of the second quarter. They finished the half shooting like 34%, 34 points, which I believe was the lowest scoring output for a half this year by any NBA team. Offense wasn't good. But to me, if you're going to get back in this game, you got to hit some shots. Sure, law of averages tells you you're not going to continue to shoot this low. Like sometimes it's something as simple as the halftime break of just like, here's that reset, and it halts some of the momentum for the Lakers, and it just gives you a chance to kind of restart the game console and say, let's start this game over here. So I expected the offense to at least hit more shots. It wasn't going to matter if you couldn't slow them down and use your defense to create offense and get in transition. They were doing that in the third quarter and really in the fourth quarter for stretches too, but ultimately they just didn't do enough of it.
Yeah, I mean, to be very clear, both were a problem. And I think for the Bucs team, I'm actually going to say the offense, and only because the defense has been a problem. Like that's been something
in November. Yeah.
Yeah. That's been something for this team where so far the formula to a win has been like, hey, the defense
just
is going to give
outscore
up points. Yes, but the offense is going to be able to outscore whatever else is going on. And that was not the case for the Bucs in this game. Like when you look at the first half stats alone for the Bucs, when the Lakers pretty much were able to build up that big 31-point lead heading into halftime, in which case I'll also say this, it feels like 30-point leads are the new 20-point leads, because before 20-point leads felt like you can't come back from 20. Like if you come back from 20, something miraculous happened. But with the pace and the 3-ball, like 20-point leads aren't necessarily safe. How about a 30-point lead in the Lakers showed just enough. That's just enough for you. But in the first half for the Bucs, I've been complaining about the fact that, hey, we're not getting enough threes. Like shoot more threes. They shot 21 in the first half. They got them up. They only made 4.
They were good looks.
4. Good looks. They just were not making the shots. And then outside of that, they couldn't even hit the 2-point shots. Just overall field goal percentage. They were 24%. in the first half. Like,
You up, yeah.
it's just a hard hole to dig yourself out of. Like, even with how hot they came out in the third quarter, where you're like, okay, hey, they're cutting
15 to
into it.
nothing run early in it, and
Exactly. It's hard. That's a big hill to try to climb back up of after you dug yourself into a hole like that.
you often hear, when we toss it around too, it's a make or miss league. And I mean, if you want that visualized, look no further than Friday into Saturday when you shot. What at one point you were in the 70s in your field goal percentage. You ended up what were they, 58% on
Against the Hornets,
threes?
or
Yeah, against the Hornets.
so.
They were high 50s on threes. And then you go to the very next night where you just could not buy a bucket for quality looks as well. Just to wrap up the discussion on the game itself, it was there, like we were commenting on it during the game as it's happening. You had opportunities against the Lakers. And even in the build-up to it, like second quarter, I remember we looked at each other a couple of times. I think we said it on the air a few times too, in that, man, you are really fortunate right now that this is not a 25-point margin, that it was kind of hovering and sticking at 10 or 12 for large portions of the early half of the second quarter, because of the way you're playing and what the Lakers are starting to build. Luka's starting to hit some tough shots. Like, this could easily be 25. And then in the blink of an eye, it's 25-31 at halftime. In the second half, though, and I think there's a couple of big moments. I forget when it was in the second quarter, but you were down 8, and it was in that period where you just kept hovering around like 12 or so. You get it to 8. AJ Green gets an open look, misses it.
Yep.
You hit that, it's a 5-point game. The game changes from there. In the third quarter, you go on that 15-0 run. You kept knocking it down to like 16, 14. You got it down to 13, and then another missed 3 that could have got it to 10, where all of a sudden it goes from 31 to 10. It's getting tight, and it's probably starting to feel like it did against Minnesota the year prior when it was, 24 that they erased?
Yep.
But you just, in those moments, you had opportunities to make it interesting, and you missed the shot. The Lakers went down and hit the shot on the other end, and more often than not, it was Luka just destroying you. So there's one other thing to point out about that performance and what we saw from Luka Doncic, but I do want to take a look ahead to this week ahead for the Bucs. We'll get into that conversation coming up next. NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. I think the last thing we should mention is this is like we said, well, we're not going to do a full post game. It's morphed into a post game and some hints of the rest of it. But the last thing we should mention, we talked about a make or miss league and the embodiment of that, the 2 games back to back. Look, we have both, and we're not alone here, and it's been deserved. We have praised Kyle Kuzma for his play this season. Last night wasn't it. And Doc said, for Kuz specifically, he thought Kuz just didn't have it because of last night specifically and because of the matchups that you've asked defensively Kuz to take on this season. But, the shots that were falling for Kuz were early in the season. We'd see it and think, like, I don't know about this, but he gets it to go. They just weren't falling last night. And, we talked about offense being married to your defense and vice versa and creating offense from your defense, etc. I think Kuz just exemplified that last night, where I thought to start the game, it was good. The Bucs were pretty connected defensively. You kind of assumed Kuzma was going to take on the Luka matchup, and you'd save Ryan Rollins for Austin Reeves and structure things that way. And the first, 10 possessions, it felt like, all right, they're connected. Luka hit a couple of tough shots, but it was what, like 10-6 or something, and both sides coming up with defensive stops. And then the well just turned off on the Bucs offense. And I thought that impacted Kuz as much as anyone, that, frustration can build in where you're not scoring on these opportunities and you got to go down and know on the other end, you got to dig in and get a stop. And Luka just took over and kept hitting tough shots in the early going that led to foul trouble for Kuz. And it just felt like there was no coming back from there.
Yeah, I felt like his rhythm was just off in the game. The frustration of the foul calls on him while trying to defend Luka. Luka's a tough cover, especially because at times they can feel like if you cough on Luka, there's a whistle being blown that way. So like I can understand the frustration, but even just the usage of Kuzma in this game felt far different than what we saw from Kuz in the starting lineup against Charlotte, where he was involved a lot more kind of like in these cutting actions, operating kind of from the middle of the court, short rolls, just cutting and really putting pressure on the defense in that way, not just corner sitting. And I felt like when this game started, it was a lot of corner sitting Kuz.
And the Lakers know as well as anyone and said, take it.
Yeah,
and that seemed to mentally impact him as well.
Exactly, and I think so too. It's like they weren't able to generate some of the easy looks for Kuz that they did in the game against Charlotte. Instead, he was living and dying by the three. I mean, he only took 6 shots the entire night, and 5 of them were threes. He didn't make one of them, even if they were wide open. And that's a larger conversation around the whole: can you play Kuz come playoff time? Because as we saw, like teams will just ignore him and be like, if he makes them, he makes them. If not, we don't expect it. So that's the aspect of his game. And if you're going to be using him in the starting lineup, you have to, I think it's imperative that you are using him closer to the way that he was utilized against Charlotte, where he is cutting and being very active. But again, second night of a back-to-back, did he just not have the legs? And be like, man, that's a lot of running. Like I've heard the jokes of players being like, I need you to cut here. And it's like, no, you cut. I'm tired. Right. You go and cut right
put
now.
In 17 miles in this game.
You know what I mean? Good. So it's like, I got to figure it out. But I think for Kuz, it's very important that the Bucs don't let him just be a corner sitter. That's not utilizing him the best offensively.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So yeah, it wasn't pretty. And the back-to-back numbers are not pretty. Like that, you need to figure that out. Now, I would hope, Camille, this team is 1-2 on night 2 of a back-to-back so far. I would hope, and I'm going to assume, they at least get to 2-2 to close out the month of November, because your next one is Thanksgiving weekend with the Brooklyn Nets coming to town. Now, granted, it is after your final cup game, which is going to be an all-out game, and hopefully it's the Bucs clinching their spot, but it's the Brooklyn Nets. You need to win that game and start to stack some successes on night 2 of a back-to-back. But here's the other challenge. Like, these back-to-backs that the Bucs have had so far, I'm not making excuses for it, because again, as we've just spent most of the show here for 30 minutes saying they have not been good, but look at the context of these back-to-back games as well. Your first one, after the emotional return to Indiana for Miles Turner and the team, then you fly into Toronto. We talked about the logistics of when you arrived, etc. The Raptors are not the type of team you want to play on the second night of a back-to-back either. Your next one, after a dreaded afternoon game in a game that you frankly should have won against the Houston Rockets, then you go to Dallas and play the Mavericks the next day. You won that game as you should have. But then last night, after a cup game, and a cup game that goes to overtime against an up-tempo team, your next one, as we mentioned, after a cup game on the road. After that, your next back-to-back is after a game against Philly, you go to Detroit and play the Pistons. So these are starting to be the types of games. Can we just get more of like Brooklyn or Washington on night 2 of a back-to-back coming here to Milwaukee? Like, that's what we're really striving for. But that's the schedule you were dealt. So you got to start to play better on night 2 of a back-to-back for the rest of the season. Now, the numbers, as a whole are not pretty. The Bucs have dropped into the mid-tier in offensive efficiency. They're still in the 20s in defensive efficiency. And I believe now for the first time this season, they have a negative net rating, which puts them 19th. And as we mentioned, it doesn't get any easier with the Cavs later on tonight. And this stretch as a whole, I mentioned it on the radio post game, starting with the Lakers. Prior to the games played on Saturday, the Bucs had 8 games to close out November. The first 7 of those 8 were against teams that had a collective 636 win percentage, with the Lakers, the Cavs. We mentioned you got Philly for the first time. You got Detroit for the first time. Then the week of Thanksgiving, Portland and what they're doing, the Heat, the Knicks, and then you finally get the Brooklyn Nets. So you are going to be tested here. My goal all along, go 5-3 in those final 8 games. If you do that, you finish the month of November 13-8. For everything we pointed to and said, this has to improve, you at least built up a nice buffer that you can continue to work on that, but you feel good at that point. But it's got to start to turn around very, very soon here. The good news, if we follow the every other model, you're winning in Cleveland against the Cavaliers in the first time in what feels like forever, finally beating the Cavs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part of it where it's like we've heard Giannis harp on like, hey, good teams don't lose 2 in a row. Now the second game up after a loss is against the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team that didn't have any success against last season. Lost in the close game to them this year, so you get a chance for a little get back. And I think we only played Cleveland 3 times this year. Instead of 4?
I think it's 4 because I think you play your divisionals.
That's what I thought,
now,
but I was looking.
I'm all thrown off now, Camille, because even the discussion over the point differential, like I could have sworn it was the case, and then I thought, maybe not, because I see other sites listing it, and then you brought it up, and I thought, wait, no, well, I don't know. It is in fact true that congrats, you beat the Hornets by 13 in overtime, but none of it matters, just the win. So yeah, everything is thrown off.
Yeah, and it is 4 times against Cleveland. So hey, the second time up, hopefully you can get a win and go from there. But I mean, you listed the opponents the Bucs have to end the month of November, and it's not going to be any easy games until you get to that very last one against Brooklyn. And even still, it's not going to be easy because it's second night of a back-to-back. You're traveling back home for it, but you got done playing the Knicks, and that Miami game, talk about pace. That game is going to be a real test for the Bucs. So they got to figure some things out, and hopefully they can end this month stronger than what they've started it.
All right, we didn't get to some of the reserves play. There's some things to tackle with that, and how much the Bucs are missing one guy right now. So we'll start to get into those conversations coming up later in the week here. Preview in more detail those matchups with the 76ers and the Detroit Pistons that the Bucs have here. I do want to say one other thing to Camille. I appreciate everybody that said you shaved your beard. Like, I mean, we're really playing fast and loose with the phrase of beard. Like, it's just a heavy 5 o'clock shadow. But I mean, the hair is still there,
still growing.
For now. I may have to cut it relatively soon because I think there's gonna be some on-camera stuff popping up. Besides, look, not to diminish this, but where I can't wear a hat and need to look presentable. So we've unfortunately probably reached an impasse here. I'm probably gonna have to cut it. So
letting down the segment of the fans here, Justin.
I know. But hey, Camille, as we wrap, even though the Bucs are struggling, at least we got the Packers that surely will not let us down.
Oh gosh, I hope they don't. If they do, you might as well just close your Twitter app. Don't go on. If you're a Packers fan, just don't go on it. If the Packers lose to the Giants, but find me on the Pack a Day YouTube page after the game, regardless of what happens. Aaron, my true feelings.
Look, it's you can find Camille's thoughts there, and you can certainly for more extensive Packers content that I'm able to offer as a casual fan, I expect them to lose to the Giants.
Oh, come on, Justin. We need the good vibes. We got to have the good vibes. Xavier McKinney, pick 6, put it in the air. Michael Parsons, sacks. Jameis Winston, interceptions. Throw it all out there for positive.
This feels like a Jameis Winston game.
I hope it's a Jameis Winston game.
He's going to eat a W. Favorite. He's going to give you 3 picks, but he's going to throw 4 touchdowns and 400 yards. So I hope I'm wrong. But, we just need something to turn around here for all of the local teams for both the Bucs and the Packers. That'll do it for today. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucs.